When reading the Bible, people often start with the New Testament because it's more accessible. However, if you don't understand the Old Testament's background, it's difficult to truly grasp the meaning of the New Testament. The Old Testament is largely made up of Israel's history. And history is about events that happen over time, with a beginning and an end. The Bible teaches us to understand Scripture by considering the context. What came before and after the passage we are reading? If you read the New Testament without understanding the Old Testament foundation, you might focus on pulling out moral lessons and rules, but miss the deeper message. Let me give you an example. Think of the movie Ben-Hur. The main plot is about revenge. Ben-Hur seeks to avenge the injustice he suffered and finally kills Messala. But after that, the movie doesn't end. It continues with a quieter, more reflective part where Ben-Hur encounters Jesus carrying his cross. Witnessing Christ's crucifixion changes Ben-Hur's heart, leading him to say, "His words took the sword from my hand." The real message of the movie isn't about revenge. It's about the transformation that happens through Jesus. We often quote Bible verses without considering the full context. Like when Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," Luke chapter 23, verse 34. We might say things like, "Just pray harder, have more faith, and God will come through." But sometimes, it's not the right time for such advice. Sometimes people just need us to sit with them in their pain and say, "I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how hard this is for you." If you skip to quoting Philippians chapter 4, verse 13, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," without acknowledging their struggle, it can feel dismissive. The truth of the verse doesn't change, but it may not be helpful in that moment. Take Moses, for example. We all know Moses as a hero of faith. But what does his life have to do with us? We can admire him. But who among us feels like they could live up to his legacy? It's not like we were born in ancient Egypt or floated down the Nile in a basket. Moses' story is full of rejection and hardship. He was born in dangerous circumstances, abandoned by his parents to save his life, raised in the enemy's household, and rejected by his own people when he tried to defend them. Then he fled to the desert for 40 years, seemingly forgotten by everyone, even God. When God finally appeared to Moses and commanded him to lead his people out of Egypt, Moses didn't jump at the opportunity. He pushed back. He questioned God, essentially asking, "Where were you all this time?" "Why now?" God responded, "I am who I am," Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, reminding Moses that he had always been with him, even during the long years in the desert. But Moses continued to resist, showing how deeply the rejection and failure had wounded him. The point of Moses' story isn't that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. It's that Moses had to grow and mature in his faith. The plagues weren't just about convincing Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. They were also about transforming Moses into the leader God wanted him to be. When the Israelites finally stood at the Red Sea, with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them, Moses had changed. Instead of complaining or doubting, he told the people, "Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Exodus chapter 14, verse 13. That's the real lesson of Moses' story. The struggles, the doubts, and the long journey through the wilderness were all part of God's plan to shape him. In the same way, when we face hardships, we might feel like giving up or questioning why God is allowing it. But these challenges are part of the process, the wilderness moments that are meant to shape our character and faith. We need to stop rushing to give correct answers when people are struggling. We often lack the patience to walk with others through the messy, uncomfortable process of faith development. But that's exactly what the Bible shows us, that God works through the long, difficult process of transforming us. Instead of offering quick fixes or quoting verses without understanding the person's situation, we need to offer compassionate, thoughtful responses. Say something like, "I'm struggling too," or "I don't have all the answers." This kind of honesty and vulnerability helps us connect with others in their pain. It's scary to admit we don't have everything figured out, but it's also freeing. It reminds us that faith isn't about having all the answers, it's about trusting God through the process. Moses spent his entire life walking a difficult path, often without clear answers. He led the Israelites out of Egypt, but he didn't get to enter the promised land himself. His journey wasn't about achieving a perfect, happy ending. It was about faithfully following God, even when the outcome wasn't what he hoped for. That's a message we need to hear today. Success in life and faith isn't about everything turning out perfectly. It's about trusting God in the journey, no matter where it leads.